part of my story is a car accident that left me disabled and bedridden for 12 years.
Hey guys, it's Donnie here, and I just want to let you know that we've recently launched a content development company, and this company helps people get social content. You know you need to put out a lot of content nowadays to get engagement out there in all your social platforms. Well, we've come up with a really cool way to help you get videos, blog posts, memes, social posters, and infographics for whatever social site you need. So check us out at successchamps.us and learn more about how you can get social content for your social media.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Point Blank Safety Services does safety differently. We know everyone is on a journey, and we want to make sure you get where you're going safely. Professional, trained, ready. There's really no comparison. Here's why hiring Point Blank Safety for your next project will make all the difference and save you huge amounts of stress and hassle. Point Blank Safety Services provides certified, uniformed police officers for a full suite of armed guard services. Don't leave the safety of your project to chance. If you're ready to make sure safety truly comes first for your next project, then visit us at pointblanksafety.com.
You're listening to Donnie Success Champions, where I believe everybody is on a journey. Life is all about the stories you can tell and teach later. You're going to hear the stories of people who have overcome hardships, failures in life to find success along their journey. All right, guys, I'm really looking forward to this. So I'm bringing on Elizabeth Clamon. I'm your host, Donnie Boivin, and I've been sitting here chatting with Elizabeth for a little bit, and she is just spunky, country, and fun, so I'm looking forward to this, guys. So, Miss Elizabeth, welcome to the show, my dear. Please tell us your story.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, you'd rather have the spunky country fun one made today than yesterday, the one that was angry, crying, and having a hissy fit.
We all need from time to time a good crying, angry, hissy fit.
Everybody needs to have a hissy fit from time to time, and the best thing to know about me is when I have one, just stay away. You don't want to be around.
Well, everybody knows if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, so.
That is true. I had a guy tell us, a tow truck driver tell us one time, he goes, I love your accent. I'd love to hear you get angry. My husband goes, no, you wouldn't. You really, really wouldn't. You don't want that.
I just got the picture of you, the mean, angry, the rolling pin in hand,
It was more like a plastic spoon with slots in it. And my kids like to tell people she carried it in her purse, which is true. I didn't have to use it much because they knew I would.
Yeah, well, it gave you an extra foot of reach, so,
Oh, yeah, until I find out now that they're grown, the little one would put his feet over on the side of the truck and hide so his sister's got his licks. So, but that's okay. She gets him back now because they're grown and they can take it out on each other.
There you go.
They don't live here anymore, so that's perfect.
Nice.
So my story is I call it a roller coaster. There's ups and downs and highs and lows, and sometimes it's one of those ones like in Ohio where you go straight up and you sit there for a while and then you do a nosedive. That's it, crash and burn, I'm done. But I've been married to my military husband for 34 years this December. And that is a big part of my story because that's the first time I stood up to my very controlling mother and said, you know what? I'm not doing what you want me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. I've been married guy I've known 4 months.
Hold on. First of all,
you're going to sit and watch me do it.
I knew I was going to like you. First of all, kudos for being married to somebody one, for that long. Two, especially being married in the military for that long. That's just awesome. And three, well done. To stand up for your mother, but you realize you only knew the dude. I'm maybe a few years younger than you, and I'm sitting here thinking, you knew the dude for 4 months.
Yeah, I know. And I have 2 daughters, and I would have probably had a complete and total hissy fit if they had done that. But, you know.
So it's do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. Well, you know what? If they'd have done that, I would have said, you know what? You're 18. You're an adult. You do what you do, and you've got to be the one that suffers the consequences. That's my kind of thought about it, you know. And so they married who they married, and they got to deal with it. And sometimes my son-in-law will come to me and he'll go, you know what? And I said, no, we told you everything. And you married her anyway, so don't even.
That's awesome.
So, you know, and my in-laws have said that to me a few times, I think, too. We talked to you.
What goes around comes around, right?
Exactly. History repeats itself, unfortunately. But my husband, he's a super guy. We actually just grew up together. I was 18 and he was 21, and we both just didn't want to be in the situation we were in anymore, and we looked like a better way out. And apparently it must have worked. 34 years, and we're still going strong. So
that's awesome. That really is awesome, especially in this day and age. Good on you.
It is. And our favorite thing to do is ride motorcycles. So we get on the motorcycle, and we call that our mental health day. So I'm hoping this weekend, he just had partial knee replacements. So I'm hoping this weekend his knees are going to feel better enough that we can go ride. Because I'm just about ready to get my own bike. So because I'm getting tired of waiting around on him to feel good enough to ride.
There you go.
I can't blame him too much. I got to have a partial knee replacement next month too, so I'll get to experience it full. So, you know, they say the longer you're together, the more you're alike.
Right.
And I guess that's true, because he had a partial knee replacement, and then I messed up my knee, and the doctor told me I had to have one. And I'm like, this is BS.
Well, you know, you wined and dined him while he's laid up and getting recovery. Now it's his turn to wine and dine on you.
Oh, well, you know what? He's already had to do that once, because part of my story is a car accident that left me disabled and bedridden for 12 years.
Oh, my God.
So the person you see sitting in front of you right now was not the person that went through that 12 years of disability. It was pretty awful. And 7 surgeries later, and surgery that almost put me into shock because I was on so much pain medicine, and I was on like 150 Percocets a month and 30 Dilaudid, and getting shots in my back and my neck, and he was I was in a wheelchair for quite a while, and so he had to do a lot for me. He had to take care of me, so I can't complain about his little knee surgery. It was only a couple of days I had to take care of him. Wow,
let me get this straight. You were basically bedridden for 12 years.
12 years, yes. Yep, absolutely. We were coming back from vacation, and we were in construction in Michigan. Believe it or not, if anybody out there lives in Michigan, you know what I mean when I say it's either construction or summer. That's our construction or winter. That's the only two seasons they have. And we had a semi truck in front of us that was in the wrong lane. He was on the shoulder. He was supposed to be in the right-hand lane, and he stopped because he was empty, and we were towing a 5,000-pound camper fully loaded, and we couldn't stop that fast because he's got 18 wheels and 18 brakes. We did not. So we hit him, and then the camper hit us, and then our daughters were 16 and 18 at the time. They were driving my husband's truck, and they hit the camper, and the camper hit us again.
Oh, jeez.
We were trapped inside of the Suburban. My husband had to kick the window out and pull my son and I out of the Suburban.
My God.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And I spent 5 days on the cardiac ward after that because I broke my sternum, and they wanted to be sure that I didn't have any heart damage, because when you take a blow that hard to your chest,
right,
you can have possible heart damage. So So
man, I can relate. I mean, my whole family, we're all big campers with RVs and stuff, and we've had a couple of close calls. Unfortunately, nothing like that. But I mean, there was one episode where the whole freeway shut down. Everybody locked up my brakes. My uncle, who was following us, literally was right behind us, and he was able to swerve just enough, and thank God there was no rail.
yes.
And he ended up side by side with us, and we still joke today because I rolled down my window to check on him, and the only thing that came out of my mouth was, "Do you have any Grey Poupon?" So that's still the running joke in the family, and I'm sorry to make light of what you.
No, that is great. I love that. My whole thing was I just kept hearing screaming, and I thought my son was 11 at the time. He was in the back seat. And the worst part of it was I had turned around to answer a question he had asked me, so I was completely rotated. So I had no warning. I saw my husband out of the corner of my eye stomp on the brake with 2 feet, and I went, "You can't stop the camper like that." And everything just went kabam. And all I heard was screaming. And I kept thinking, Joshua, I'm coming. I thought my son was screaming. Well, later my family tells me it was me that was screaming.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know it was me. I was in shock. I had no idea it was me that was screaming.
Mm.
But the good news is everybody walked away. Everybody made it out all right. And they all had bumps and cuts and bruises and scrapes. But Mom, not so much. But as the mom, you want it to be that way. You'd rather it be you than your kids and your husband, I wouldn't want him to have had to forfeit his military career. And he was just getting started as an officer at that point, and we had just gone through all the training. So, so you just do what you got to do.
God bless.
Yeah.
So I still can't wrap my head around about being laid up in bed for 12 years. I mean, that's.
Well, there were so many drugs involved that it really just kind of was a haze. A haze of drugs and pills and sleeping and watching a lot of TV and reading a lot of books. And then I had my final surgery, the 7th surgery, on December of 2014. And I was on so much pain medication, they could not control my pain after surgery. My body was just tolerant to it, and they couldn't control it. And after I blew the 3rd IV, and they came in to stick me again, and my husband's refusing. They're wanting to send me home. My husband's like, "I'm not taking her home. You can't control her pain here. What am I going to do? Go home, call 911, and they're going to bring her back." So I just looked at him in this just one moment of clarity, and I went, "I'm done. I'm just done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm through." And I had already had my training in education as a naturopath. So I knew natural ways to heal the body. I was just so injured and so much pain, I couldn't think clearly enough until I had that switch flip in my mind. And I was like, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. And when I got home and recovered from that surgery, I made a plan. And the plan was to get off a half a pill at a time. So I'd cut a pill in half. And for a whole month, I'd take 3.5 instead of 4, and then 3 instead of 3.5. And it took me well over 6 months to get off of all that stuff and get it all. And then, of course, using herbs and things like that to cleanse my body. Started chiropractic and massage therapy and heat therapy and acupuncture, acupressure, all the natural healing techniques. And unfortunately, that wasn't the first time I'd had to do that. That was the second time I'd had to do that.
Wow.
The first time was what my book is that is coming out next week on the 14th. And it's coming out on Wednesday, the 14th of November, 2018. So if somebody's listening to this, in 3 years, it's out there. Look on Amazon. It's there.
Yeah, because these are evergreen, so they're out forever. So
yes, exactly. So it's called Beauty Rising from Brokenness, and it's about going through childhood trauma and having an extremely dysfunctional family and how that affects you. And it's a combination of my story of my childhood traumas that I went through, and talking about traumas that people don't even know sometimes that they went through, because we can have pre-birth traumas. We can be traumatized in the womb. and up to 3 years old is really prime time to be traumatized. And it can be your mother's emotions or the surroundings she's in, the people she's around. You know, it's well documented that people are traumatized, that babies are traumatized by alcohol, or mother drinking alcohol or smoking, but people don't really realize that if she lives in a stressful environment, or if she's upset, or she has anxiety about childbirth, all that affects the baby, and it rewires your brain. And it's called adverse childhood experiences. And so that's what I wrote about in the book, and wrote about what I went through and how I got to my 30s, and then I just became a volcano. I just turned into a volcano because I was so pissed off at the world. I just started spewing lava on everybody. So you really probably want to have my husband on here, because he could probably tell you what it's like to be burned by lava. That's why I told the guy in the tow truck, no, you don't want to see her, man.
Yeah. I don't know. 34 years in the Air Force. I don't know if he wants to hang out with a jarhead like me. I don't know how well that'll go.
He's pretty easygoing. You know, we ride bikes with everybody. So, we ride bikes with Marines and Army and Navy. We don't care.
That's awesome.
We're easygoing. But so the book is what I'm working on now. And unfortunately, I went through that whole situation and finally had to break away from my family. So my birth family hasn't spoken to me in 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They don't like for you to talk about the truth. They just want you to live in the world of pretend, and I don't do pretend very well. I'm pretty much a straight-up person.
What's interesting about that is a country singer named Shelley Wright grew up in the same small town. We grew up in Kansas. And growing up, we hung out, rode horses, and did everything with her and her family. Well, she finally wrote a book about her growing up, and we had no idea. The abuse she was going through, the struggles she was going through. And interestingly enough, she pretty much bashed the small town that we came from because she couldn't get help and support when she was out there going through it all. And then she came out and was a lesbian, and everybody walked away. It's so tragic. I mean, Country Music walked away from her. Nobody wants to deal with the truth in a lot of those situations, and it's very, very unfortunate.
It is. I mean, people just don't want to deal with life. It's life. I tell people, I'm like, if you know somebody that came from a functional family, a fully functional family, please call me and tell me about it, because I have never met one. Everybody has some skeletons in their closet. They might be little ones, they might be big ones, but everybody's got them.
Yeah,
and the problem is everybody wants to keep them hid.
That is the truth. And it's one of the reasons I started this show was I truly believe your story is your strength. Whatever you've been through is the fire that molded you into what you need to become to wherever you're at on your journey right now. And, unfortunately, people have some really, really tragic stories in their past. But if they use those stories as their strength, man, they'll do some amazing things in life.
Right. And that's my whole point. And that was my whole point in writing the book. And that's why I wrote it as a combination self-help book and memoir, because I wanted people to know I've been through this. I walked through this, and I healed myself because I was chronically ill. I had chronic fatigue. I was sick, just asthma and bronchitis, and just my immune system was so run down just from I was so mad. And I kept it all inside, and I kept it all buried. And once it started coming out, it started coming out in spurts, and then it just blew. And once I confronted my family with it, they didn't want to hear any of it. What's going to be really interesting is if they get their hands on this book. They walk into Barnes and Nobles and go, Elizabeth Clamon, oh my, here we go. That's not going to be fun. Not looking forward to that. I'm hoping they don't ever go into Barnes and Nobles again.
Well, Barnes and Nobles probably won't be around for many more years. So.
Yeah. Well, Amazon, they get on Amazon too, hopefully. But, whatever. I already spoke my piece, and I did what I had to do, and that's that. So,
absolutely.
And, my whole reason for writing this was because I wanted people to know it's not just you. because that's something we all think, oh, it's just me. I'm the only one that feels this way. I'm the only one going through this. We think it's just me. I wanted them to know that there's hope at the end. The only way out is through. You got to go through it and you got to deal with it. And the best way to do that is to journal and to write and to get it out where you can examine it.
That's 100% the truth.
Feeling it.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I mean, and I believe that is the absolute right answer. So you've twice in your life healed yourself through all of the hippity-dippity natural craziness that people go after. And I love it, by the way. When I say hippity-dippity, I say it to laugh, because I don't think if we don't make jokes of it, people won't start listening. And it's wild that there's literally a line in the sand of you either do regular medicine or you do natural medicine. There's not this you pick one or the other type thing. And I think as the older generations, unfortunately, continue to pass on, you're going to see more of the natural medicines come back to the place, because big corporate America is getting punched in the face right now by these new belief systems, by these younger generations coming up. And I love it, because it does need to massively change in the marketplace.
And what I talk about is an integrated approach. There is good in Western medicine. There is good in natural medicine. There's good in Chinese medicine. Take what works for you and make it integrate it and make it work for you. Not all things, some people cannot even fathom acupuncture. They're thinking, needles, no, I can't do it. So, I'm like, if you can't get past the needles, my son-in-law is one. He cannot get past needles of any kind. He hates it. And so I'm like, then don't do acupuncture. Go to acupressure, where they just apply pressure with their finger or whatever. You've got to take the best of everything. I have a nurse practitioner I see, and I have a rheumatologist I see. And those are my two Western medicine doctors. But I make sure that I pick somebody that is open-minded to my way of thinking, that I'm going to treat naturally first. And that if I do have to take a prescription, I'm going to do other things that are going to counteract the bad part of those prescriptions.
Right.
And so, all those years I was on all those pain medications, I was taking liver supplements to cleanse my liver, because those things will give you cirrhosis of the liver in a minute.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I was doing some things. I just couldn't think clearly enough through the pain until I got to the point. And I tell people, when people call me to coach with me about, getting off medication or changing their diet or changing their lifestyle or whatever, I tell them, if you're ready, if you've made that mindset shift and you're done doing what you're doing now, great, let's do it. Let's go for it. But if you're not absolutely done, you haven't flipped that switch in your brain, I don't want your money. Because I'm not just here to take your money. I want to help you.
Right.
I want to help you get to the next point. I don't need your money if you're just throwing it in the trash can because you're not doing what we've decided that's the best for you to do.
Yeah. And here's what I love. I love that, by the way, is, since I started this show, I've had the pleasure of just meeting so many cool people and hearing their stories and the things they're into. And I do bring a lot of veterans on the show. And unfortunately, I've had to hear the stories of some of these veterans coming out, straight out of conflict. And two guys come to mind, and it's Chad Davenport and Alex Feiner. And I forget which two of these guys. They were buddies. They served together. They got out, and they run a business together. But one of them, because of PTSD and the night terrors and the things he was going through, was on 18 pills a day.
Yeah.
And was literally in a medically induced coma, living in a fifth wheel.
Yeah, just existing. That's all you're doing is existing.
100%.
Taking up space.
And and luckily, the other buddy got him out of that situation and got him other help. Another guy that was on the show, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, but same thing, out in California, dealing with his demons and whatnot. on the verge of suicide because he can't handle it. The medication's not helping. Passes by a yoga studio, pulls over, and does a yoga meditation session. And between that and weed, he's great. And now he's teaching people in service dogs and doing all this stuff. But it's the answer for these guys is it wasn't the traditional medicine. Let's overpill them.
No.
It was through some sort of natural path. And up until I heard those stories, I never thought about the natural side of things. Right? I never thought about the natural healing side of it, but those are hard truths not to look at. Now I hear stories like from Cheryl Myers and her story, your story now. I don't know if you haven't met Cheryl. I need to make that introduction.
Yes, I would love to meet her.
But same thing, self-healed through all the natural medicines and everything else,
Right.
Going through all that pain, I mean, how do you just reach down and say enough's enough? I mean, that's a big ask.
Well, I tell people that moment in the hospital, well, there was a moment with my family when I was at my mom and stepdad's house, when a moment happened when my stepbrother that sexually abused me when I was 9 came to the house, and my stepdad offered for me to go in the car with him to the bank to help him get money that they knew was not in the bank. They knew that his ex-wife had cleaned out his bank account. But yet he was going to put me in the car with this person, and he was obviously under the influence. And that was the same moment. I just had that switch flip in my head, and I just looked at my stepdad, and I went, like hell I will. And I got up and went to the room where my kids were, and I said, guys, y'all want to go home? And they got up and started packing. They were ready to go home. They didn't want to be there any more than I did. And home at that point was a fifth wheel, because this was after September 11th, 2001, and my husband was deployed, and that's when I was so very, very sick, and we were afraid I wouldn't be able to take care of the kids. And we went home thinking I'd have choices of places to stay. Well, my choices dwindled down to my mom and stepdad's, which was the place I didn't want to be. But it's a good thing because it woke me up and made me realize that I was done and I was going to change. I wasn't going to live like that anymore. I was, 38 years old with 3 kids and had been married for 20 years, and I was too stupid to run the washing machine. I couldn't run the washing machine without supervision.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then if I would cook a meal, it was, well, this is good, but we don't eat like this anymore. And we did it. And I'm like, so when that stepbrother came in, that was one of those defining moments where I just said, that's it. I'm done. And I walked out, and it was the same thing in the hospital. That defining moment of the doctor said, you've been on so much pain medication is the reason we're having so much trouble keeping your pain under control. I accused her at one point of using a dull spoon in the surgery, that she did surgery with a dull spoon. And the nurse is like, did you really say that to the doctor? I'm like, that's Angela. We have margaritas together. I'm not worried about what I'm saying to her. She just happens to be my doctor right now. Usually she's Angela, and we're at the Mexican restaurant having margaritas, so I'm not worried about it. But it was just one of those moments when I was like, I'm just done.
Right.
And you just, I don't know if you wake up or what it is, but you just decide this is not the way to live. I was not put here on this planet to live like this, and I'm just not going to live like this anymore. And I call it getting in touch with my stubborn Cajun. I come from Louisiana, so I tell people my mama was a Louisiana woman and my daddy was a Mississippi man. They got together every time they could. Here I am.
That's awesome.
So I just tapped into that stubborn Cajun and went, you know what? I'm just not going to do this way anymore. I'm going to do it my own way. And I have a tendency to do that. Like my kids, when I wasn't happy with them, with their school and their education, I said, that's it. I'm going to bring them home and do it myself. I'm not happy with the way you're doing it. So I have a tendency to kind of do that, to be like, you know what? I can't screw this up any worse than you can.
That's awesome. So now you're taking all this knowledge and you're passing it on to others to help them on their journey to health of some sort.
Yes, all this knowledge and experience combined together. That's where you can't really find people that have the education and the experience. You know, I got them both, so I can relate to people in a way that few people can. Because I've been there.
Does that mean because you're Southern and crazy, or because of the health problems?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. This has been a fun ride, girl. And so you're doing it through speaking, coaching, all the above?
And my books that I've got this book coming out, and then the next book is about the car accident, and it's coming out next summer. So through writing my books and coaching and speaking is what I love to do. That's what I really love to do. I love to get in front of audiences and have a good time. I love to interact with people. I love to make people laugh. And so, you know, if you ever come to hear me speak, just put on your seatbelt. Buckle up, Buttercup, because we're going to go for a ride.
I have no doubt, girl. I have no doubt. Well, if people are going through their journey and they want to get in contact with you, buy your book and all that fun stuff, how's the best way they do to go about that?
What I tell them is if you can remember my name, you can find me. It's ElizabethClamon.com. If you want to send me an email, it's Elizabeth@ElizabethClamon.com. All my social media is under Elizabeth Clamon or Clamon Natural Health. So if you can remember the Elizabeth Clamon part, you can get through. And it's Clamon, Clamon, Clamon. So it's a pretty unusual name. So if you can remember that, you can find me. You can even Google me. I Googled myself. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, guys, like, wow, she just said that out loud. I even Googled myself. She said that in the out loud voice.
Well, a friend of mine's teenage daughter told me, she goes, Miss Elizabeth, have you Googled yourself? And I'm like, no, you need to. You really need to. And then I was like, oh, no, what's out there? What does it say? That I had to know.
Right? This is awesome. Well, Miss Elizabeth, thanks for doing this. Here's how I like to wrap up each and every show. If you could leave my audience with a quote, a saying, a phrase, a slogan, mantra, motto, something they can take with them on their journey, especially if they're in those dark times of their life and they're trying to figure out what's that next thing they need to do, what would be that quote or saying you would say, remember this?
Remember this, be relentless. Lash la la patat. And that is Cajun for be consistent, be resistant, be resilient, dig down deep no matter what hardship you come up against, and make your life better because only you can. Now, if you have some French people listening and they hear lash la la patat, they're going to say that means hold on to the potato. And it does. But, you know, Cajuns have a way of making sayings their own. So Cajuns say lash la la patat, which means dig down deep into that Southern Cajun hardness and hold on and get through whatever hardship you're going through. So be relentless. Lash la la patat.
I love it. So hot potato, guys.
Hot potato.
That's awesome, girl. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us, Elizabeth. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it too. It was great.
Thanks for listening to Donnie Success Champions podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our current guest today, or if you'd like to hear stories from our other guests on the show, come hang out with us on our website at successchampspodcast.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, you can catch me at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com.